Welcome to 40 Days with Henry. Welcome to this very first video on Ash Wednesday, the first day of Lent, February 22nd. As I've said previously, the book that we are using for this year of 40 Days with Henry is Bread for the Journey. It's a 365-day devotion. So if you have this book, then I invite you to read along with me and take this journey. If you don't have that book, that's fine. You don't need it. You can listen to me as I read the passage. The passage for today is called The Balance Between Closeness and Distance. Henry writes, "Intimacy between people requires closeness as well as distance. It's like dancing. Sometimes we are very close, touching each other and holding each other. Sometimes we move away from each other and let the space between us become an area where we freely move. To keep the right balance between closeness and distance requires hard work, especially since the needs of the partners may be quite different at a given moment. One might desire closeness while the other wants distance. One might want to be held while the other looks for independence. A perfect balance seldom occurs, but the honest and open search for that balance can give birth to a beautiful dance worthy to behold." Okay, so I have to admit that, I read this and part of me thinks, on this first day of Lent, on this first reflection, wouldn't it be great to have something that seemed to be a bit more spiritual? Can we have a reflection on the cross? Can we have a reflection on the life of Jesus, the call of sacrifice, or something, rather than this meditation on dancing and interpersonal relationships? And so part of me thinks, I should pick something else. But I won't, right? This was the reflection for the day, and Nouwen's obviously not writing specifically for Lent at this point. He wrote this in 1996, and I don't know what day February 22nd was on 1996. So we'll go with today. Because I do think that there's actually something that we can do with this passage, something that we can reflect on through Henry's words. And as much as Henry was a priest, and that was the foundation of who he is, he was a Roman Catholic priest, but he also, in his early career, did a lot with psychology and the intersection between psychology and spirituality. He worked at the Menninger Institute, and a lot of his earlier lectures were kind of about this. And so this isn't necessarily foreign, this type of idea of the intersection between spirituality and interpersonal relationships. It's not foreign to Nouwen. So what do we do with this? This reflection on dancing, and how might we hear this as some sort of call to our spiritual life? Well, a couple thoughts. One, our spiritual life has to involve our relationships with others. And so this is not a non-spiritual reflection just because it deals with intimacy between people. Henri Nouwen was a lover of Thomas Merton, and he was a big fan of his. And Thomas Merton once said that the spiritual life never leads us away from this world, but always deeper into it. And so our relationship with the people around us, and particularly those intimate relationships that we may have with family and friends, and the people that are super close to us, it is part of our spiritual life. And so it is important, I think, to think about, as we enter into this season of Lent and this time of self-examination, to think about, how do we live with others? Not just how am I living my faith life before God, and that's a really good reflection to have, but also how am I living my faith life before others? How is Jesus shining through me? How am I managing the relationships that I have in the best and most faithful way that I possibly can? Knowing that there is this interplay between closeness and distance. And this is where the language of the dance is, I think, is really important. Nouwen was somebody who struggled with relationships all the time. And he struggled particularly with recognizing the need for distance, because he was always wanting to go closer. He was always wanting to cultivate this deep, intimate connection and then not let go of it, to the point that he would burn out, and he would burn out his friends. And so it took a long time for Nouwen to recognize that this distance, this awayness, this sense of feeling of I am here but you are there, which was servicing that intimate relationship, was something he had a hard time recognizing. But it was important for him to do so, and he got there later in life. But also in our reflection with God, I think. How do we understand this dance with God? And this is why our liturgical seasons are really important, because our life with God isn't just one thing. If our life with God was always just every day the most profound intimacy that we could possibly have, and every day we woke up into this unadulterated closeness, we would burn ourselves out. It would be too much for us to handle. And so our life of faith have ebbs and flows. We have this balance, he says, between closeness and distance. There are times where we feel God really, really near, and then there were times where we feel that God isn't as near. And that's actually an important part of our life of faith. That's part of the dance, Nouwen would say here. And so maybe as we enter into Lent, that's part of what the reflections can begin with. Where are you in your dance with God right now? Are you in a season of really closeness where you are dancing in close proximity to the presence of the Spirit and all is well and good and you're within that movement? Or maybe do you feel that you are at a place of distance where God might be leading you still in intimacy, still in love, but from maybe just a farness or a perceived farness, because obviously God is always with us. Where are you in your intimate relationship with God? Well, so maybe that's a place to begin. Where are you in this dance with the Spirit? Well, God bless you today as you go through your season of Lent, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.